immediately introduce our keynote speaker, and then our keynote speaker will take the podium. Continue to enjoy your lunch as you hear her message, because then we're going to flesh it out into a discussion. Our moderator today is Dr. Julianne Malveaux. Julianne, let's say it right, Julianne Malveaux. Yes, yes. Dr. Malveaux has long been recognized for her progressive and insightful observations. She is a labor economist. She told me to make this short, but you can't make Julianne Malveaux short. She is a labor economist, noted author, and colorful commentator. I'll just say it fast. She has been described by Dr. Cornel West as the most iconoclastic public intellectual in the country. She is iconoclastic. Get out your Google. She is currently the Dean of the College of Ethnic Studies at California State University in Los Angeles. Her contributions to the public dialogue on issues such as race, culture, gender, and their economic impacts are shaping public opinion in the 21st century America. Dr. Malveaux's popular writing and weekly columns have appeared in USA Today, Black Issues in Higher Education, Ms. Magazine, Essence Magazine, The Progressive, and the Tri-Sydney Newswire. She received her bachelor's and master's degree in economics at Boston College. During her time as the 15th president of the Bennett College for Women, Dr. Julianne Malveaux was the architect of exciting and innovative transformative at America's oldest historically Black college for women. Dr. Malveaux has served as the honorary co-chair of the Social Action Commission of Delta Sigma Theta, say it right, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and she serves on the boards of the Economic Policy Institute as well as the Recreation Wish List Committee of Washington, D.C. A native of San Francisco, she is also president and owner of Economic Education, a 501c3 nonprofit headquartered in Washington, D.C. Let's welcome back to the program and back to the podium Dr. Julianne Malveaux.
Well, good afternoon, all. Good afternoon. Isn't it great to be back together, face to face, after 2 years of isolation? We haven't been able to see each other, hang out with each other, and now here we are. So just take a moment. And not right now, because we're tight on time, but just take a moment before you leave up out of here to make 3 friends. Make a moment to just take a minute to talk to 3 people you don't know. Because, you know, we have to be connected. I am standing here in the shadow of Reverend Willie Barrow, who is a number 2 at Rainbow Push, who said we are not so much divided as we are disconnected. And so just think about that. I stand here in the shadow of Dr. Dorothy Irene Height. Want to recognize Attorney Janice Mathis, my dear friend, who is now the executive director and all that, and a bag of chips at NCNW. And I want to just say, guys, it's an opportunity for us to be connected. I stand here in the shadow of C. Dolores Tucker, who, when I came to Washington in 1994, the first thing she did to me is told me to watch my mouth. Oh, well. But the second thing she said, she sent me this humongous plant and said, put it in your office so people understand that you got back. And that's what we all have to understand for each other, is that we got back. Yeah. And so when I heard about this sister, I understood about back. Dr. Deborah Turner serves as the 20th president of the League of Women Voters of the United States. Come on now, just applause right there. Because, you know, the devil is busy. I ain't gonna quote Denzel, nor am I gonna go there with the nonsense, except to say, I wish I had smacked that MF myself. Oh no, I didn't say that. Somebody gotta stand up for black women. Now, smacking is not useful, often, but no, we're not gonna go there. I just had to say that. But we know what's happening with our voting rights, and we know who is attempting to erode our voting rights. And this sister has got her finger in the dike to say, She is the chair of the Board of Trustees of the League of Women Voters Education Fund. She was elected board president at the 54th National Convention of the League of Women Voters in June of 2020 and will serve until June of 2022. And guess what? Given COVID, we hope she'll run for a second term because she ain't had the time to do all the stuff that she was supposed to be doing. Come on, y'all. She was elected. Yes. We love you, sister. We appreciate you. And you got a long old bio that I'm going to read, or maybe I won't. All y'all know me, I'm so unscripted, it ain't even funny. Someone told me that I need to come back to the reservation. I said, but the reservation is anti-Native American, so I don't want to be on the reservation. You know what they did on the reservation? We ain't going there. What I'm going to say about this sister is that she basically has served on every committee in the League of Women Voters, from the Finance Committee to the Diversity Committee. She chaired the Diversity Committee. They need to have a Diversity Committee. I don't work with them people before. They ain't right. She served her bachelor's degree at Iowa State University, her medical degree from the University of Iowa. She did her residency in OBGYN. There's so much about her, but she's gonna tell you about what we must do. Here's the deal. What we must do to ensure that we have our voting rights. And Hazel, Edna, before I take my seat, we have to give this sister the biggest hand we can. Do it. Stand up, y'all. Stand up, y'all. Give it up, y'all. And I'll tell y'all why. She has done this. Hey, y'all ain't paying for your lunch. Y'all ain't paying. She has raised the money to make sure that we could come together. She has pulled her network together to make sure that we could come together. She has done her thing. She loves black women. This is the last day of Women's History Month. We must love black women. So if we call the roll, it's Ida B. Wells. You know, it's Frances Ellen Harper. You know, we're calling the rolls of Mary McLeod Bethune, of Dr. Dorothy Irene Height, of C. Dolores Tucker, of so many. And when we call that roll, we must add to that roll this sister who is doing, ma'am?
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So that was a testimony, and what I know is that when Hazel and I talk in the morning, I live in LA these days. I'm a transplant, but I'm coming back, y'all. But when I talk to Hazel in the morning, she often says, I got to stop right now to get a cookie to my mama, because her mama loves cookies. And
Everybody knows about those cookies.
so that was a testimony from one of the nurses, and we love that because many of us who are of a certain age are taking care of our mamas.
That's right.
Or folks like me don't have the privilege anymore of taking care of our mamas. My mama died less than a year ago. So we don't have the privilege of taking care of our mamas. So we do appreciate sister who raised that up. And, you know, y'all know me. I'm like a wind-up doll. I can talk all day. I ain't going to do that. I'm going to turn this mic over to Dr. Turner, who is going to turn us out and tweak us up about our voting rights. My sister.
I love you, lady. Oh, thank you, Dr. Malveaux. I am full of joy looking out on this audience and seeing all of your amazing faces and being together in community with so many wonderful black women and the men too. It has risen my spirits from some depths of despair myself. But before I start, I would like to give a shout out to the black press. I am a born and raised Iowan. I am a born and raised Iowan. Yes, there are black people from Iowa for you who don't know, okay? And I grew up reading the Iowa Bystander, an African-American newspaper founded in 1894 in Iowa. The Bystander was one of the 20 black newspapers in the founding of the National Newspaper Publishers Association in 1940. It was part of our life, and that's how I grew up learning things about black folks in Iowa. So thank you to the black press. Yes. My remarks today support two of my very strongest beliefs. First, voting is not a partisan issue. It is an American issue. And there is no freedom. Let me say this again. There is no freedom without the vote. These beliefs were fostered at my mother's knee, where I learned to drop literature and to go door to door for democratic issues. I am honored to be here and stand before you as president of the League of Women Voters of the United States. My life's mission, as is the League's, is to empower voters and defend democracy at all costs. The League is actually active in all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and the Virgin Islands, with more than 750 local leagues across the country. As an organization that is now celebrated its 102nd birthday, we have witnessed voting rights victories as like the ratification of the 19th Amendment and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Although we have seen many triumphs, we have also witnessed setbacks, starting, unfortunately, with the Shelby decision in 2013 that eliminated pre-clearance requirements. It turned us back almost to the days of Jim Crow when it talks about voting rights. So until we have very strong national standards, our right to vote will continue to be under threat. The restrictions on mail ballots, voter ID laws, and the elimination of same-day voting registration are just the tip of the iceberg. These restrictions are more palpable, however, in marginalized communities, severely impacting the elderly, those with disabilities, and black and brown voters. Let's not kid ourselves. Partisan and racial gerrymandering continue to dilute the voice of the black and brown voters also. I would argue, and think about this, that unfair maps, gerrymandering, actually could be the #1 bane of voting equality, because the purpose of unfair maps is very simple: to make your vote not count. Black elected officials in several states across this country today, from Congress down to the counties, have been drawn out of their districts this year because of gerrymandering. It is really frightening. The voter suppression that gerrymandering supports provides protection of political parties on both sides of the aisle. The number of competitive congressional districts that are on track to be the lowest in 3 decades has dropped from roughly 108 in the second Clinton election down to 20 truly competitive and only 20 leaning competitive districts in our country today. That is frightening, because that means that voices are being silenced and your vote has less power. Think about that. We have to fight this. And do you know who often faces the brunt of voter suppression efforts? Women voters. Women voters, particularly low-income minority and elderly women voters, are disproportionately impacted by restrictive voter laws. And it does not stop there. Sadly, we are seeing growing attacks and intimidation of our election workers. We have seen racial harassment, death threats, and personal information exposed. That is not how public servants are treated in a democracy running free and fair elections. These threats are the actions of a country under oppression, where tyrants rig the system and voters fear participating. These types of threats should not take place in our country and in our democracy. It is time for our elected officials to take these threats seriously and protect election workers who are just trying to do the job of making democracy work for all of us. So it is time for us to elect the right people who will do those protections for us. Amen. All of this is a lot of this is a result of what? The big lie. The myth of voter fraud is dangerous to our country, and it is used as justification for these blatant anti-voter laws. The myth of the big lie is so dangerous that it prompted violent insurrection, as we all know, or insurrectionists to storm the U.S. Capitol. We are just now acknowledging how close we came to losing our democracy that day. The perpetrators of January 6th sought to invalidate the will of the people in an election proven the most fair and the most secure in the history of our country. We must take meaningful action to protect and strengthen our democracy, ensure we never see such an attack again. We have had our wake-up call. We now need to answer it. I had the opportunity to travel to Selma, Alabama recently to be among those celebrating and commemorating Bloody Sunday, the mass civil rights demonstration in 1965 that obviously ended in violent attacks by law enforcement on peaceful protesters. It was 50, 70 years ago when those activists put their lives on the line to fight for the freedom of the vote. It is now the year 2022, and we are continuing to fight laws that seek to silence the voices of the Black community and new laws that make it harder to vote. But what I saw in Selma were signs of hope. There were hundreds of people of all races and creeds marching together to protect our democracy. I saw organizations like the League of Women Voters and Black Voters Matter working together to stand up for voting rights. I saw young people who had the energy not only just to walk, but to dance for miles. They were using their voices to vote and fight for voter suppression, against voter suppression. It was an honor to walk alongside League of Women Voters members and staff, our partners and youth from all over the country. We marched not only to commemorate John Lewis and so many other activists and their bravery and leadership, but to celebrate the women who also led the fight and marched on that historic day. Women like Amelia Boynton and Marie Foster. Yes, the women were there as always. It is clear to me that women power democracy. Black women especially hold up the foundations of our democracy, turning out the determination on behalf of their families and their communities. And women power democracy as poll workers, as volunteers, driving their communities to the polls and taking the rightful places in places like in the home, in our educational institutions, in the courtroom, and yes, in the White House. Never doubt the power of women to create a more perfect democracy. And because of the women and allies fighting for our democracy, we have seen some progress. This year, many state legislatures actually committed to expanding access to the ballot. Legislators in at least 32 states have introduced, pre-filed, or carried over nearly 400 bills that increase and expand the right to vote. States like Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and many others have taken steps to make voting easier. So now let's make all the rest of the states do the same. And through litigation, we have celebrated several victories when courts agreed that gerrymandered district maps violated either state or federal laws. So we have made some progress, but we must continue to fight. Why? Because our democracy is under attack. Our democracy is strongest when everyone is heard. Throughout American history, whenever our democracy has been threatened, it has been the people, and particularly the women, standing up and making their voices heard to promote civil rights, women's rights, racial justice, healthcare issues, climate justice, and workers' rights. All the things that make this country great and will only be accomplished and endured with the power of the ballot box. Once again, it is the vote that will make it better. In the 2020 election, while deep in the trenches of COVID pandemic, we saw critical policy changes that made voting more accessible. And you know what happened? Voters showed up. Pro-voter reforms led to an unprecedented voter outturn in the 2020 election. It proves that when voting is accessible and flexible, more people can have their voices heard. And in Georgia, we cannot forget the role of Black women who were instrumental in turning out the vote in the 2020 election and then turning around and doing it again for the Senate runoff. People were tired, but Black women weren't. They continued to fight and work tirelessly tirelessly for years, mobilizing and organizing voter registration in their communities, which resulted in massive voter turnout. The voting rights advocates of today stand on the shoulders of those who came before them, from the Ida B. Wells to Stacey Brace Abrams, and so many unsung heroes like my mother and your sisters and your aunties, the unsung heroes that we forget to celebrate. Black women have played a pivotal role in the advancement of voting rights. Black women as a collective power are a force to be reckoned with. While black women are not a monolith in any shape or form, they have and continue to use their voices to make progress on so many causes and so many issues, particularly around voting. Women have always played a significant role within our democracy, even if the history books do not always include them or give them due. I understand, like Fannie Lou Hamer, how you can be sick and tired of being sick and tired, but you're going to get up the next day and continue to fight, because that's where the hope is. A true democracy is more effective than when everyone can have their voice heard. We are building a more perfect democracy when we are inclusive of all communities and when our elected officials reflect our communities. We must stand up for voting rights now and continue to push our leaders in Congress to make voting rights a priority for the American people. Many may ask, with the passion and dedication I have, why have I chosen to be a member and to lead the League of Women Voters? Well, the number one reason is because it reflects my values, the values of voting rights, fair and equal elections, social justice, and racial justice. I will not sugarcoat the past. The League, like so many other League legacy organizations, has its dark history. At its inception, black women were there from the very beginning. They were marginalized, however, and they were asked to go to the back of the line. However, the League has and is working hard to overcome its history, and the rank of file of today's League reveals members of all ages, genders, races, ethnicities, beliefs, and many members of color in prominent positions. Like America, it is a work in progress, but we cannot move forward if we continue to live in the past. We must look at our history, and then we must use that to move us forward. I have one last thing to share with you, and then I will get off this dais. I was fortunate enough to walk in Selma with an amazing young woman named Divine Hall McGuire. Divine is the granddaughter of David Hall, who owned the first campsite along the route. For some unfamiliar, each night of the march, people basically slept or camped in various places, many times in the ditches, laying on cardboard. Divine told me inspiring stories she'd heard from her grandfather, and as we were walking, she said something to me that was seated in my soul. She said, "Look at the shoes." She said, "These walkers are wearing Pumas and Nikes and Adidas. There were none of those in 1965. I hope they understand that the marchers then did not have fancy shoes, and many of them marched right through the soles of their shoes and then lined them with Cracker Jack boxes and kept on marching." So looking at this inspiring young woman who was there to support and carry on the inspiration from her grandfather, I realized we need to keep on marching. We need to keep on till we walk through the soles of our shoes. Why? Because that's where we need to go to move this. We can win this. We can do this. So we have to keep on marching. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Give it up. Give it up. Give it up for the president of the League of Women Voters. I am so proud of you and so honored to be in your space. Now, as you all who have attended this annually know, we have so many brilliant women who also have schedules. And so what we're going to do, we have a panel, but before we do the panel, because one of our sisters has something to do, she's got a report that she's putting out, and that's Melody Campbell, the president and CEO of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. You've seen her get arrested. You've seen her up front and center. I could say all these things about her, but all I'm going to say about Melanie is when you talk about voting, Melody Campbell's name must come up. Must come up. She has been there every time, all the time. And like I said, I've got a long, I'm trying to mind my language. I got a coach who told me I ain't supposed to cuss. So I'm not supposed to say Marilyn Farmer no more. Okay, we ain't going there. Melanie, come on up. You got a report. I hope that you will share with us some of the results before you go to your press conference. Make sure we know what you're talking about. Melanie.
I'm going to apologize for my voice. So bear with me. And first of all, thank you, sister, for all you're doing. And at the League of Women Voters, you all are showing out. Y'all are there right there. We're right there showing out. And my sister Hazel, you know, and Hazel, I always mess up, don't I? Oh my God, I know it. Yeah, but she called me, and I do apologize that I was had that messed up, but I could not miss coming in here and seeing all of y'all. You say, I do feel a little tired, but I'm gonna go with Dr. Skinner. I'm no ways tired, but when I know I'm tired, I lose my voice. So that's God speaking to me, Janice Mathis, that it's time to take a little break. So I will be doing that. But as we closing out this Women's History Month, this is no better opportunity to come together in sistership, Gwen, brothership, all kinds of ship. David. Because it's been a rough time we've been through. And it's nice to come together to celebrate. It's nice to come together and just be together in a time that there's so much promise, but there's a whole lot of pain also going on. We got this opportunity with the sister, I like to say her name, Ketanji Brown Jackson. And the promise and the pain showed up last week. And I know the panel's gonna talk about it, so I won't go. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The promise and the pain, and the brother stepped up and helped us get back to the promise, and Senator Cory Booker. So we appreciate him.
Yes, come on now. Here, take this one.
And so this week, okay, I think the mics are just out. Okay, thanks, Julia. Okay, but this week, last week I said but this week, we're here, and a sister who sometimes we're not quite sure where she's coming from Maine, stepped up. Senator Collins, and took all doubt away, but God. So we already know that sister's on the road to becoming the first black woman U.S. Supreme Court Justice in the United States of America. Ain't God good? So I'm going to be brief, and again apologize that I can't stay. But I want to share a little bit about a report, because I'm going to be obedient, right? And talk about this report that we're releasing. This is our 9th annual report. And one of the people who supports this and getting this done every year, Edna Kane Williams, would you please stand up from AARP? I thank you, Edna. And was sat next to her, my mentor, my spiritual guide, my friend, my warrior sister, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner. No way I'm not going to lift up, and thank you for praying my voice back. Pray my voice back for me. But I'm going to give a quick report that we put out every year, and there may be some writers in here but it's a compilation of black women's voices, intellect, thought leadership from the local level to the international level, who bring their thoughts, their ideas, their solutions, our concerns, our challenges to this report every year. And we don't cut it off. If you get it in on time, we might even give you 2 extra days, right? Whoever sends it, and if it's a quality essay, we put it in there. Dr. Avis Jones-Weaver and Dr. Elsie Scott are our co-editors, and I believe our assistant editor, Jocelyn Tate, they got Jocelyn Fry on the brain, is in the room. If you're in the room, wave and so I can see you, Jocelyn. And so this report we're going to release, which is why I can't stay. Hi, Joanne Williams. Hey, Joanne. I'm going to stop looking. Two friends. So the couple of the top lines that I wanted to share, excuse me, before I, hold on 1 second. Some of this we know. So one of the sections is about black women owning and building our power from the ballot box to halls of political power. We know we were deeply affected by the pandemic as it related to that. It's already been said, no matter what, we still showed up in 2020, and we're going to show up even more in 2022. And that's what we got out of some of the report, that black women are going to show up in 2022 and keep breaking those glass ceilings and knocking down doors. We're really having a lot of concern, with a lot of angst. There's not 1, 2, or 3 issues. There's a myriad of issues that black women are concerned about. And one of those is still the issue of racism and discrimination in this country. What has moved up the ladder in the report, and we also pulled in the Essence report area, is that we're concerned about voting rights in a way that we have never been before. It is in the top 3 of concern for black women. Yes. So we have to address that. We are looking for policy solutions that are race and gender centered. The 117th Congress is the most diverse Congress in history. And black women are really making a major difference. So there's a piece in there that talks about how black women, in spite of so much partisanism, are still making gains inside of the 117th Congress. We're moving and making more strides in foreign affairs. As we know, we have the UN ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield. If we didn't know who she was after Ukraine, and God bless the folks in Ukraine, she's showing up and showing out everywhere. So we talk a little bit about the significance of that. We talk a little bit more about the significance of having this first vice president, what that means for political power in the future. We also discuss the issue around saving our democracy from peril. And we look at how gerrymandering is really ripping apart the ability for us to build power, especially on a state and local state level. With all of that voter suppression, we know about how they're making it hard for us to vote, but they're also making it hard for us to continue to maintain and build power in this country through gerrymandering, and we do an analysis around that. When it comes to criminal justice, we have a real concern because we still have not, our young people took to the streets and still on the streets, right, fighting. We didn't get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed yet, which is why 2022 is critically important. And we get down to discussing what that means and how yes, you can do it from the bottom up, from this local level out, but unless we have a systemic change, then we're gonna still continue to see our young men and even young women killed unjustly by unjust police. Not all police, but those who don't know what, anyway, I won't get no trouble. Raising wages. With this inflation, it's taking us down. When you start talking about the issue of the housing crisis and how that impacts us, we see inflation. But day to day, we're not even making enough. The income levels are really stagnant. Pandemic really did a number on us. and we're really not talking about it, but we're living it. You know, I'm the auntie with no kids. My little paycheck, I need another job. Anybody hiring? Because I have to help my family stay in the house, in a decent apartment or a decent house. So when it comes to wealth building, it's very difficult. So the issue, she told me to wrap it up. Okay. Told me to give the results. Now, which one you want? Okay. I'll stop. I'll tell you, because I'm obedient, but I was obedient to give the report. So I will stop here and tell you to go check out the report results. There's a whole lot more I could share about the report. But at the end of the day, I'm going to say thank you to my sister, Hazel, Edna. Thank you all. Together, we stand on the shoulders, as our sister told us. We stand on those shoulders. Thank you. You can go to ncbcp.org. NCBC, it's up there already. But I do leave you with this. We will win. We will overcome. And black women will lead us there with our allies and our brothers and our other folks from other communities on our side. So thank you, God bless you, and I'll see you on the battlefield.
We have these wonderful and brilliant ladies who have come to share, and as all of you know, any one of them could be our keynote speaker. But what Hazel always does is mixes it up. I call it a patchwork quilt of black womanhood, where we weave it all together and we make it happen. And I'm going to briefly introduce each, and I'm going to beg them, implore them, and y'all know I ain't too proud to beg, but I don't make a habit of it, to just do 2 to 3, 4 minutes so that we can then begin, maybe have a bit of a dialogue or perhaps even have some questions, but it depends on them. If they cooperate, we got it going on. And if they don't, we go stop at 2 and y'all go mob them on their way out and say, how come you didn't answer my question? So I'm not doing it in particular order except for to say, brother, get off the front of my stage, please. Seriously, I'm talking to you. Y'all know me, straight no chaser. I'm going to start for a reason with Kimba Smith Pradilla. The reason I'm going to start with her is because this young lady, when I think about her, I almost want to cry. The entirety of Delta Sigma Theta rallied around her when she had some drug dealer. You know, this is a lesson to our daughters. Just because he fine don't mean he needs wine. But she was a drug dealer's girlfriend. She was in the car. She had a drug. She was just in a car. 24.5 years in federal prison. But she got out. She got pardoned by Bill Clinton after serving 6.5 years. And she has gone on to be a wife, mother, public speaker, advocate, consultant, and all that. And an advocate. Campbell, just tell your story. Give us 3 to 5. Don't give me 5. Give me 3. Okay. Give her a rousing round.
Goody. The mic. Can we get the mic working? Because you can't take my time now. Okay. Testing. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I always give God all the glory for all of what He's done. I always give my parents, because they stuck by me 110% when they didn't have to. I also have to acknowledge Gwen McKinney. I believe maybe she stepped out of the room, but she was very helpful in bringing my story to the media across the country and helping to free me and working with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, because they decided to take on my case pro bono, and they did that because my story was featured in Emerge magazine. And George Curry was publisher of that magazine at the time. And I can remember being very anxious, scared, because I just knew our community was going to be very judgmental about me and my choices. And, you know, I was worried about the negative publicity my parents would get, but our people stood up. And I'm thankful to Elaine Jones, who's she was former director of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And she was from Norfolk, from the court where I was sentenced, and she said to me that she wanted to make sure her homegirl saw justice. And I thank God for her courage. I thank God for George Curry. I also thank God for you, Hazel Edney, because with you, I can remember at Howard University coming to see George Curry and you, and it was always the black press, even after I was released from prison, that would let people know that I graduated undergrad, that I was doing all these wonderful things. And so in my limited time, I want to make sure that I give you your due, and thank you so much for inviting me here today amongst giants. I recognize that, but understand that there has been a calling on my life. And so first, I've been sharing my story because I don't believe each and every young person has to make each and every mistake there is to make in life, that they can hear another person's story and make a determination not to go down the same path. Even though I just turned 50, I'm still telling that college girl story to prevent our other girls from going down the same path. But also, I've been an advocate because I felt like the actor in 12 Years a Slave when he walked off of that plantation with Brad Pitt. And when I walked out of those federal prison walls, I knew that God opened those doors for a reason. And so it was my commitment to my people in helping to bring others home and advocate and continue to be a human face. And I can't forget to mention, not only was it the Deltas, the Delta president, the National Council of Negro Women's president, hello, and the Links Incorporated's president actually came into federal prison to let me know that they were going to make sure that my case saw justice. But it wasn't about poor little me, about the fact that I was my parents' only child. It was because back then the fastest growing population were black women. And so in coming out, the only source of relief was through clemency. And I'm grateful for it. But when I was given all these accolades about, President Clinton coming out, and I was a babe in my advocacy, I thought about it after the fact, and I was like, but he signed that crime bill that caused this influx of black and brown people to even go into the system. So I've done this advocacy work that's centered around voting rights. I've done work with the League of Women when I was working for the ACLU of Virginia, but in that position, I can remember going to a criminal justice forum, and Secretary Brian Moran of Virginia was there, and I said that there needs to be people who have been impacted, formerly incarcerated people, to have a seat at a table to make influence. And next thing you know, a few weeks later, I got a call, and I was offered a position on the Virginia State Parole Board. And a lot of people, thank you, a lot of people said, Campbell, are you sure? And I knew that God opened that door for a reason, but I'm going to promise I'm going to sit down real soon. Understand that that was one of the most challenging opportunities of my lifetime. And like Ketanji Brown Jackson, I worked my butt off in that position. Yes. And I made decisions that I thought were fair. I listened to victims, and I listened to formerly incarcerated people and their families. And when you are put in a position to serve, you're supposed to make the best decisions that you can. And that's what we did. And so there was a particular case that we granted that got all of this national attention. And there were commercials talking about how corrupt the parole board was and how we were letting out murders and rapists. And what people don't know is that's all the cases that we vote on, but there are people that have been in prison for far too long that have changed and done what the correctional system has provided for them to do. But I know a lot of people in our black community, you kind of sway away from those particular topics. But I'm here to tell you that when I spoke at a high school earlier this week, and I talked and shared my experience being on the parole board. And let me not fail to forget to mention this in the fact that I had to resign from the parole board because Youngkin campaigned that on day one that he was going to fire each and every one of us. And so I walked away. But in me talking at the school, understand that it was a young girl that stood up and she said, "Who was the governor that appointed you?" And then the next question she asked, And who is the governor now? And I share that because as voters, we need to impact those individuals that typically would not be involved in this voting process because they think it doesn't impact them. And so as we move forward as a people, we need to reach back into those communities. And I'm just so grateful to be in this space. And I think I've mentioned all those points, and I know we'll have a conversation, but
If you finish and we have time, we'll have a
oh,
conversation.
and I'm going to sit down, but I know I didn't mention everybody, but I thank everybody that's in the room that's been impactful. Thank you so much.
Yes, she deserves all our love. Well, people ask me to moderate because I'm cold. I had a mentor who used to turn people's mics off. Literally, they'd be mid-sentence and she just turned their mics off. Like your time. So I didn't do that to you. I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to try to move this because Hazel reminds me we have a networking reception after. Our sister Barbara Williams Skinner is doing a book signing after. We really want to finish it too, y'all. We really want to finish it too. Nkechi Taifa is my sister friend. She's a fellow NARC commissioner, which is National African American Reparations Commission. She has started Taifa Group LLC, which is a social enterprise firm. Before that, she worked for the Open Society Foundation. She's been on the cutting edge of all kinds of stuff, including fair sentencing, crack cocaine, all that. Her voice is a powerful voice, and we're going to have like 3 minutes of her voice. Nkechi.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Julianne Malveaux. All right, thank you, everyone. You know, I was 5 months old when Mamie Till Mobley, said, I want to open up that casket. I want the world to see what they did to my boy, Emmett Till. And we know just a couple of days ago, we finally had the passage of the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill after over a century. So I want to give homage to Mamie Till Mobley for that courage, for the sound that went around the world. So I was in 3rd grade when Fannie Lou Hamer was beaten to within an inch of her life just for having the audacity to try to register to vote. Okay? I was in 10th grade when Angela Davis was arrested with that, fist, Black Power, and all like that. And I was in college when someone who you probably don't know her name, Queen Mother Otley Moore. Queen Mother Moore, who was talking about the issue of reparations for Black people at a time when no one was talking about the issue. At a time when it was on the fringes, when we would be considered militant or revolutionary, I would vote for those things, or just plain crazy, which I was not. So I'm saying all of these great Black women had a tremendous impact on me back then in the past, and today in the present. All of the women that are part of this dais, whether they know it or not, have served as mentors to me. And I want to really thank you. Thank you for your tenacity, for your organizing, for your mobilizing, for your mentorship, your menteeship, and the like. We would not be here. I won't even go individually, Barbara Armwine, but I'm just saying, we would not have had that Armory victory had it not been for Barbara. And I could just go all the way down the list. So I'm going to just take the moment to just really stop right now by just saying that all of these issues that we talk about, whether we're talking about the wealth gap, whether we're talking about health, whether we're talking about education, whether we're talking about voting, whether we're talking about housing, whether we're talking about justice system, they are all related to that issue of reparatory justice. And I'm pleased on Monday to do a TEDx talk as part of the TEDx U Street Women, on the issue of reparations, an issue whose time has come. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to have to give my sister some high props. She made her time. She did it. Okay, Nkechi Taifa, I appreciate you. It's all about voting rights today. It's all about voting rights. You have no rights. No rights if you don't have voting rights. You have no economic rights. You have no other rights without voting rights. One of our most powerful advocates is Dr. Ife Williams. She is blessed and highly favored to have followed in the footsteps of Dr. C. Dolores Tucker. Blessed and highly favored. She is the president and CEO of the National Congress of Black Women. It used to be the National Political Congress of Black Women. And I don't know, Faye, if you remember, we all sit in the room, 1984 convention, when the white girls were trying to like jam us up because we was mad that they dissed Shirley Chisholm. And Shirley Chisholm and CD sat together and said, we're going to do something about this. And so they did. We started an organization, and Ife, of course, has taken the mantle and run with it. She is not only president and CEO of the National Conference of Black Women, but also the president of the Dick Gregory Society. Change maker, advocate, political candidate, author. She has a weekly radio show on WPFW called Wake Up and Stay Woke. And that's the issue. See, people always talk about they woke. Well, okay, you woke. What you do when you got out of bed? Yeah, I mean, you just woke. Whatever. Come on, Faye. 3 minutes. Don't make me stand up on you.
Thank you so much. Every wonderful thing has been said already, so I'm just going to say a few things, and I hope I don't mess up. But you know, all of y'all look so beautiful today. Your hair is looking, I can mention that word, right? Your hair is looking good. Now, let me tell you, when I left home this morning, mine was looking good too, but see, I don't have good hair. So I apologize for the way that it just came out this morning. All right, let me just say that so much is going on in this world, and I know that so many of us have gone through some challenges. My mom made her transition about the time that Julianne's mom made hers, so I miss her so much, and she was a big part of my life, and we need, not just in women's history or black history or whatever, to honor our mothers, because our mothers are at the root of what we all do. You know, we had these challenges, but we stood up. We looked at each other and we said to each other, we've got to keep on going. Yes, I went to jail. I had the audacity to even file a case against the police officers who arrested me because they took my money when I went in there. And of course, by the time we got to court, they had dropped the case. They decided, okay, let her go, she's crazy. But anyway, I have worked with so many of these women, and I congratulate them for what they do. Nikiti and Julianne and I have worked on reparations together. Karen Mulheiser, who's here, we've worked on United Nations issues together. And during the pandemic, we didn't just sit around and feel sorry for ourselves. I went to school and I studied diplomacy and protocol, and I got this medal. I'm now a United Nations ambassador for peace. And of course, I wrote this book called Dick Gregory, Wake Up and Stay Woke. So you see, black women are always on it. We're always doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I know voting rights and all of those things are important. We know that. We don't even have to say it. But then there are some people to which we must say it, or to whom we must say it. And I say that even though we've had these last few years, some of us encumbered some things that we should not have had to do, but we keep on. We get up every morning and we do what we have to do. It doesn't matter. My friend Dick Gregory used to say that the things that bother us most and make us sick when we think we're making somebody else sick or feel bad, and that's jealousy. And if we've got it in our lives, we've got to get rid of it, sisters. We've got to get along. Hate is one of those other things that makes us ill. Anger is one of those things that makes us ill. It's not hurting the other person. So my sisters, I say, we all want to do well. We all want to thank you to brothers like Cory Booker, who knows how to honor women. We got to praise him and say amen to what Cory Booker did. Cory Booker's not the only brother out there who can do that, so I want to challenge more brothers to stand up and do that. Frank Malone is out there. He does it. I want you to give him a big hand because he does so much in our community. And we must honor all of our people who are doing well. But let me just say to you, if you want a well done, you got to do well. Thank you. God bless you. I yield the balance of my time. Thank you.
I love my sister who excited us, ignited us, and shared some things that we all need to know about. Because you mentioned your mom and mine, I'm going to take 1 minute to tell you a mama story about voting. I was 6, and JFK was on the ballot. I was at a Catholic school, Immaculate Conception, whatever. I mean, if you believe that lie, you believe a lot of stuff. But anyway, Mommy walked me down the voting rights booth. The voting booth was a block from our house. It was in these white people's basement. They actually had a pig they owned a pig, and the pig was in the basement with the voting rights group. But Mommy walked me down, and she gave us a story about how black people didn't get to vote in Mississippi, which is why I was going to be pulling the lever. And she poked my little skinny self up and said, pull that lever right there, and I did. So I voted in 1960. And then when I went back to school, to the Catholic school, and she told me all this other stuff, so the little Catholic lady said, the nun actually, said, JFK has made good for black people. I said, well, he better be, because they didn't let us vote. So they sent me home. This was a start of a very disturbing pattern in my life. People always sending me home. But what sticks with me is that my mama took me down and talked to me about our voting rights. Right. And I think that that's what made me an advocate. Another time, a friend of hers ran for sheriff, and he had a little, he said, this is what my opponent has done. It was a little notebook that had nothing in it. And so we walked around and carried around the neighborhood. He didn't win, but it was what it was. All of us have mamas who inspired us. That's why we are who we are. That's why we do what we do. Barbara Skinner has stories she can tell you about her mama. All of us, Edna, we bonded a little bit when her mama passed. We all have stories we tell about our mama. We have roots, y'all, and that's why we do what we do. And I have had the privilege and honor, once upon a time during a Christmas party, of meeting Barbara Arnwhite's mama. And see, the apple don't ever fall far from the tree. It don't ever fall far from the tree, even if we kind of scrape the roots a little bit. My mama would smack me upside my head every day. One day she told me, she said, honey, we did not get a PhD for you so you could argue with white people for 3 minutes on TV. Oh, well. But Barbara is a president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition, but that's not how you know her. She has an organization, but she has a radio show called Igniting Change, in which she ignites change. When you hear her open her mouth, she's igniting. We know each other, I don't know how far back, but one of the things we worked together with Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push Coalition. We've worked together in terms of the Voting Rights Act. And we're going to work together today, because she's going to give me 3 minutes of her igniting change. And I'm going to tell you why, y'all. You see this mic here and this mic there? The shorter she is, the more questions we can manage. And then we got some honorees, and we got the book signing and the reception. Come on, Barbara. All right, then.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Wow. First of all, thank you, Lord. Because look at us. We're beautiful. We made it. We are here. Some 200 plus thousands of our brothers and sisters are gone. Gone because of this COVID crisis. Don't let anybody tell you there are no consequences to how we vote. Come on. Because without that failure by the former president, we would not have that tragedy. I just want people to know a couple of things really quickly. I am on my way. I'm going to have to leave at about 1:40. And I'm going to be on my way to New Orleans. And because New Orleans is the site of the HBCU All-Stars game. And for the first time in history, CBS will be broadcasting it on Sunday. Groups like mine, Black Voters Matters, and others, we have Transformative Justice Coalition, we have come together and we have put together sponsorships to bring hundreds. We at TJC are sponsoring 350 young black folks from HBCUs, Dillard, Xavier, AU Complex, to come and be part of that event. And when we're there, we're having tonight a forum on voting rights. You see, I get sick of people telling me about our young people, about what they don't do, what they can't do, how misled they are. I'm like, these are our children. Who are you talking about? Because the reality is that actually, if we would not have the current administration were it not for black young folks. Because as much as we talk about the power of the black woman's vote, which is mighty, be clear that young people increase their share of the vote significantly, with going from 43% of young people voting to over 53% in 2020, and most of those being black young people. You see, we got to understand that Georgia is the result of black young people. We got to understand that when we look around the country, it is our youth who are leading the way. So let's get that real straight. So that's why we have to invest in them. We have to lead with them. We have to give them the opportunity to shine always. And that's why I'm so happy to be going to hang out with them tonight. All right now. And I did not miss, Julianne, and I did not miss, Ms. Turner, that when we were in Selma, that it was young people, again, who led the march from Selma to Montgomery every day. And they turned out in droves, getting on buses, being bused for like 10 hours to come and do that march. So I don't want us to get, twisted. The other thing I want to talk about really quickly, restoration of voting rights. Our number one programming for Transformative Justice Coalition, besides all the work that we do on voting rights, is going to be to focus on all our brothers and sisters, the Pam Moseses of the world, who have the Crystal Masons of the world, all the people who have been denied their right to vote because of the fact that they were formerly incarcerated or have a felony record. Let's be clear, there are 6 such million people who live in states like Florida and Arizona and Iowa and others that are so strict and so hard, Kentucky in the past, to get their voting rights restored. But let's also be clear that there's another 9 million who are confused, because who tells them what their voting rights are? Who's helping them to get their voting rights restored? We got to be in that gap. Because in this moment, God always calls upon us to step forward. And lastly, did I hate seeing that gang of 5 last week. That Holly thing. That so-called Blackburn thing. Lord, you better give back that first part of her name. We saw, Lindsey Graham, crybaby Graham. And we saw, Tom Cottoning, and we saw all of this nonsense by this gang of 5 and Teddy Cruz. Oh, Lord, help us. So I just want us to know that on April the 4th, this coming Monday, is the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Well, they're going to try to, because the vote of the Senate Judiciary Committee is Monday on whether or not they will refer her nomination out to the floor. I want you to know that they're going to, if you think they already showed their natural you-know-whats, they're about to really show out on Monday. Don't let them assassinate our sister on that anniversary. Let's make sure that we stand up, that we're strong, and we do what we got to do. Show up and show all the way out. Thank you.
There you go. There you go. There you go. There she go. Come on now. Did she not ignite? Did she not ignite? Okay, so guys, here are just a few marching orders taken from what she said. Call your senator.
Right.
And don't only call yours, call somebody else's.
Please.
Call your friend in Iowa, or in Nevada, or wherever you have, Arizona. Yeah, y'all, we need to just go up to Senator's office and scare the hind parts out of her. Say, okay, that which rhymes with which. If you don't do right, we ain't gonna do you right. I'm just saying, we have some agency here. I don't know where Hazel is, so this is an opportunity for those of you who have questions to go to one of those mics, and until Hazel comes back to do the honors or the awards, if anybody wants to say something, you got a mic. Now, don't just say something because you got something to say. We have these because we all got something to say. We black women and men, everybody got something to say. But you got these brilliant people here. So come on, anybody?
And Julianne,
Yes, ma'am.
while we're waiting, everybody, I urge you to go to tjcoalition.org
Yes.
and see our statement on Kentaji's nomination, also to see some job vacancies we have, and because we're serious about hiring people. So I just want you to do that, and I also, want to point out that there's, some really great teachings and other events coming up that I hope you'll see and become part of. Thank you.
My sister.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Dina Bass Williams, and I worked on my first campaign in Columbus, Georgia, over 40 years ago. When I was 11 years old, we elected the first black woman to the city council in Columbus. She happened to be a Republican, which I am, and I know that might not find favor in this room, but I appreciate the woman who said that there's a diversity, that the black woman is not a monolith. We are not a monolith. My question is, if we recognize that voting rights as it is hugely important, is there any place where the left and the right can find common ground, understanding that 80% of Americans support voter ID, 69% of African Americans support voter ID, and there may not be, but I'm wondering to these women who, many of you I have sat on panels with and I respect and I have learned from. You don't know who I am, but I definitely know who you are. And but I'm just wondering, and I want to say I also appreciate Hazel, who has, for over a decade now, has encouraged me to increase the marketplace of ideas, and she's always been fair to me as I've tried to share my side of the conversation. So I'm just wondering, is there any common ground in the left and the right on the voter ID issue?
Okay, my sister, I'm not disrespecting you because you're a Republican. I'm putting a pin in it because Hazel just told me I had something to do.
Okay.
So we will come back to this question. Is there any space between the left and the right? Hazel wants me to. Pardon me? Okay, well, and Keisha, you want to say something real quick?
No, I was just going to, whenever you get to the response to the question,
Well, hey, I need Hazel to come back, and Edna, who's getting an award, needs to leave. So I'm trying to manage all y'all. So real quick then, Keisha, while Hazel comes back.
Okay, I would just say, first of all, look at the criminal legal system. And I say that because when we deal with the criminal justice system, there really has not been much difference long-standing between Republicans and Democrats with respect to justice reform. As Campbell mentioned, it was Clinton that signed the crime bill in 1994. We would never have gotten the second chance reentry bill passed if it had not been for bipartisan support. We would never have gotten the Fair Sentencing Act, which reduced the disparity between crack and powder cocaine in 2010, passed if it had not been for bipartisan support. But there are times when partisanship is important. Campbell would not be sitting here today had not that stroke of the executive pen, the presidential pen, which was Clinton at that time, granted her release. So there are times when we can, should, and must, and the only way we can get things passed is if we work together. But there are other times where we can singularly make a difference as well. Thank you.
So my sister, I'm going to say this to you. Them people who are beating on our Supreme Court nominee, who are out of order, out of line, out of control, and need to be whipped. You know, when people talk about Will Smith smacking, don't let me go to the United States Senate, because y'all gonna have to do a collection to build my hind parts out. Those are Republicans. You deal with them. You deal with them, and we'll deal with you in terms of ways we can work together. I'm gonna sit down, I'll be back. Hazel.
Thank you so much. And did you all enjoy the presentations, all of the issues, but did you also enjoy the food? Yes. Okay, well, thank AARP and all of these sponsors up here. And because, I'm sorry, Edna has to leave. She did tell me that, but you get so caught up. And so I'm going to have these honorees to come forward as I introduce them. Okay, but I'm going to give Edna Kane Williams her honor first, her award first, because she's just been amazing. Not just to me, not just to us, but to the Black community. Edna Kane Williams, she is Executive Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer For AARP, Edna has the responsibility for driving AARP's enterprise diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy encompassing our workforce, workplace, and marketplace. She leads strategies for the multicultural audiences and the age discrimination strategy work, and also oversees the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Council and AARP's Strategic Enterprise Employee Resource Groups. With a bachelor's degree from Yale University and a master's from George Washington University, her community service includes 25 years of experience working in senior management positions in both the nonprofit and for-profit organizations. AARP has been the title sponsor of this event for every year since its inception.
Wow.
Let's give her a hand. I present to you Edna Kane Williams.
Wonderful.
She is being honored today with our Stone of Hope Award
Yes.
for Championship of the Black Community.
All right.
Thank you.
I have spoken at podiums so often, I've never cried. I'm not sure what's going on today. I so appreciate the words, and Hazel knows when she offered me this, I said, Hazel, no, don't give me an award. I'm not being modest. I don't feel like I deserve, there's so many champions in this room. I don't beat the streets and carry the signs that so many of our advocates do. That is so important to our community. I fund things, and I'm happy to do that. When you have jobs like mine, you're supposed to show up for people, and I've tried to be a loyal friend. Julia, I actually owe you an apology. She wrote me such a wonderful, wonderful note 5 years ago when my mother died. Handwritten, 2 pages. Your mother died last year. I reached out to Ricky to get your address, and I haven't had a chance to respond, so I apologize to you for that. You were so thoughtful. And you all, thank you for your kind words. Thank you, Hazel. It means so much to me. I apologize. I never cry. Not sure what's going on today, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Wade. Everything pictures and thank you so much. Let's give these students a hand from Howard University. They're from my class at Howard University. Yes. Yes, I'm going to call forth Michael Grant formerly from the National Bankers Association president. He has been such an amazing help to us as well. I would like for him to be in this picture because he is kind of sort of acting as our president of marketing, vice president for marketing, etc. He pushes us. How does this thing go? Oh, here it is.
No,
It says Stone of Hope Award.
that way.
Here it is.
Yeah, there you go. The picture goes right.
I don't know how to do this.
I have it, Hazel.
Where's Julianne? You're supposed to be in the picture too.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you, Yvette. Thank you.
Should we keep on or you want to go back to this?
No, why don't you just do it all?
Okay.
Folks, we're not cutting the question period out, but now that we got to roll with the honorees, we're going to do them, and then we're going to still have a couple times of questions that anybody wants to address our Republican sister from the panel. We will do that. We have much love for you, but you got to take care of them people.
Okay. You got to cut out now?
I'm going to wait 5 minutes.
Okay, all right. Our next honoree is Dr. Stephanie Myers.
Yes.
I won't. She's got an amen corner in here, I see. You know, what amazed me about Stephanie is I didn't know all about her. I just knew that Stephanie was against violence. That's what she's getting this award for. But when I began to research her to pull down all of her anti-violence stuff, I was like, I didn't know she did all of this.
Oh, yes.
She has a long record of notable public service. She's a publisher. She owns a publishing company. Yes. Her and her husband. She has written Invisible Queen, Mixed Ancestry, Reveal. That's Queen Charlotte. Did anybody know Charlotte, like from Charlotte, North Carolina, was a black woman? And so she wrote the book. She also co-authored the rescue of, Robbie Robo, a children's book that she wrote with her husband, Roy Myers, who would be here today, but he is under the weather. So let us continue to keep him in prayer. She was selected to attend the 1985 International Women's Conference in Nairobi, Kenya. I mean, there's so much I could say about her, but she's here today because, well, she's always here. Actually, she's been every year, but she's being honored today because of her stance for nonviolence for the past 10 years and probably longer than that. I, as a reporter, have followed her because when everybody else would turn to something else, she would still be dealing with street violence. She would still be dealing with domestic violence, every kind of violence, yes. While we're talking about, and we need to talk about the police, but she's talking about all violence, yes, to cease. And so for 10 years, she has been consistent. And so the purpose of this honor today is her work for nonviolence over the past 10 years and she's a founding co-chair of Black Women for Positive Change. And we also want to acknowledge her co-chair. She is the Honorable Dawn Hester, the treasurer of Norfolk, Virginia. Is she here? Dawn, stand up. Oh, okay. Yes, she's the treasurer. See, I got to explain. I just know Dr. Myers because of the nonviolence, and I've been covering her, and she's the one on the phone with me. So her work, Dr. Myers' work in nonviolence has spanned 10 years. It started with the Week of Nonviolence. And actually, it started with the Day of Nonviolence, and then it went to the Week of Nonviolence in 2015, and then in 2021, 10 years later, it became the Month of Nonviolence, of Family Nonviolence and Opportunities. Her work in nonviolence activities have been held in 21 states and in the UK. She has received proclamations from governors and participation from mayors, community and civic leaders, and faith leaders. Her nonviolence work has also included the production of 2 short films about violence prevention titled On Second Thought and Drop, A Story of Triumph. This triumphant woman is coming forth now, and she is being joined by Dr. Barbara Reynolds. I'm asking you to come and stand with us. She didn't know. Been trying to reach you all morning. Your phone went to voicemail. I want her to stand because she is, Dr. Barbara Reynolds is the chaplain of Black Women for Positive Change. Hurry, Dr. Reynolds. Just wait until after she does her remarks.
Thank you, and I'm here with a wonderful team of participants with Black Women for Positive Change. Please, would the ones who came today please stand up and let's accept this together. We're an organization of women and good brothers and Gen Zs and multicultural, and our dedication is to the whole idea that Black people, we are leaders of the world, and we have decided within our group, led by my beloved chaplain here, Reverend Barbara Reynolds, we must change the culture of violence. And we can show people that love and respect can work. Our community brings music to the world. We bring love to the world. We have a new role. And we saw it demonstrated this week at the Academy Awards, how we have to teach our people anger management. We have to teach them that respect can happen even when things get painful. So our organization, Black Women for Positive Change, which I'm very honored Hazel has been working with us and getting the word out, we feel we're at a crossroads, not only in America, but in the world. And we're working as volunteers, as people who are supporting each other, and we have 3 primary goals. Changing the culture of violence must happen in America and the world. We must get the voting going, and we're working with Barbara Arnwine and reach out to all of you. We've got to get into the streets and get people out there to vote. We also believe that we have to give our young people alternatives to violence. A lot of our young people say to us, stop lecturing to us. All you want to do is tell us what we're doing wrong. Why don't you guys stop focusing on yourself and start giving us some dreams? So we're trying to focus on some dreams for our young people so they can go to low Earth orbit and go to space, and they can do artificial intelligence. They're geniuses, and we have to release that genius. So I'm very honored to be here again with my representatives of our organization, so proud of our good brothers, of our sisters, and all of our generations. We invite everyone in this room to be a part of the Month of Nonviolence, Families, and Opportunities next October. I don't care if you sit at the kitchen table with your grandkids and talk about nonviolence, or have an event at your church or your organization. We want to light this country up with Black folks saying, we can do this differently. Yeah. We can change the culture of violence. Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Myers is receiving the Stone of Hope Award as a force for nonviolence. She opened us up, as she has opened so many people's hearts up to God. She has, one of the things, when I asked her to come and to be honored, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner said, what have I done? I'm like, okay, how about you founded the Congressional Black Caucus Prayer Breakfast? Her and her husband. You know, how about you have pastored people at the White House? She has led prayer. She has covered this nation from the bottom to the top with prayer and with leadership. She has taught pastors how to lead. She has taught people how to be leaders. And her assistant said she sent her a short bio. How many miles long is her short bio? Because she's done so much, and it's so good. But I'll read some of it. Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, she is CEO, co-founder of Skinner Leadership Institute. She is a trusted advisor, public policy strategist, faith and community leader, author, lecturer, educator, executive coach, and mentor. She has made an indelible imprint in American public policy, government, diversity, and community relations. She and her late husband, Tom Skinner, founded the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation prayer breakfast that annually attracts over 3,000 leaders across the nation. She regularly works with interfaith leaders on issues like health care and criminal justice reform, I'll read one more paragraph and then I'll introduce her books, widely known as the Committed Prayer Warrior. Dr. William Skinner regularly prays for and with congressional leaders and sends daily scriptures to many of them. She is co-founder of a millennial leadership program, the Master Series for Distinguished Leaders, that equips millennial leaders to move to the next level of their lives and careers, which address the needs of the disadvantaged. The program is now in its 13th year. I'm going to stop right there and bring her up could you get that bag under there? There's her newest book. I'm going to ask Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner to come forward. The name of the book that I had in mind when I thought about this award, it is, and you have it on your calendars, which I'll tell you about. It says, I prayed, now what? Okay, my journey from no faith to deep faith. And her newest book is Leadership Led by God. Are you going to be signing this one too? Okay, she's going to be signing both of these books. You don't want to miss this. So while you're in here, we're going to be, doing a little crab cake, a little jerk chicken, and then, little hors d'oeuvres, and a few other things. But she's going to be signing her book, and you don't want to miss this opportunity to be a blessing and to be blessed. Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, and then I'll give you the
for her. Okay, I'm not supposed to do this, but y'all know me, I'm not supposed to do anything I do. I just have to give praise, glory, and honor to my sister friend. She is the bomb. All that and a bag of barbecue potato chips, not regular chips. Hazel, forgive me for just jumping in here, but I just had to say this. I did to do me, but she has done this thing with young people. And I've had a mentor, I think, almost every year. She brings these young people to us, these old heads, and allows us to sow into them. But you cannot mentor without being mentored. You cannot teach without learning. And this is what she's about. She's just about us. I just had to say that. If you don't know her, you better. If you don't have her book, go get it. Prayer is not about, God is not like, the yo guy. You say, I want this, and you think God gonna give it to you, because he ain't. Or she ain't. What you have to ask yourself, I prayed, now what? I love you, Barbara.
My soul does look back and wonder how I got over. Any of you, is that your story? Yes, when I came to Washington, D.C., at 28, right out of law school to work for a member of Congress, didn't know anybody, and worked for the Congressional Black Caucus. And let me tell you about black people and how, especially women, how we can help one another. It was Barbara Jordan, Shirley Chisholm. They weren't famous to me, they were my bosses. But they took me under their wings and taught me how to do things, even though I had a job. But I came out of law school not knowing what a chief of staff was, and they taught me how to do it the right way, even paying me for it. That is the beauty of giving back. And so when Barbara Anwar is saying invest in our young people, I don't go anyplace without young people. I brought my young person here, my millennial stand up, Bronze Adams, because you can't carry this dream. You can't carry vision into your grave. You gotta pass it on. You gotta pass strategy on. You gotta pass ideas on. You gotta pass plans on. And so without any money at all, I just said, God, because so much has been poured into me, if I ever had the wherewithal, I would do the same thing. And it was 14 years ago now that we began the Master Series for Distinguished Leaders, bringing in 15 amazing, talented, 25 to 40-some-year-old young people who they're at the ceiling where white people have taken them as far as they're gonna let them go, And it's our job to take them to the next level. It's our job to open those doors that no one can shut. And they don't need our criticism. They already know what's wrong with them. They need to know how to get to right. What is right? So we help them with people like Julianne and other amazing leaders. Edna Kane Williams has been such a blessing to us. Thank God for her. So I have begged, borrowed, and stolen the money to make sure they can come in and get what they need. And let me tell you, today we have them running for office, going to seminary, starting businesses, starting projects, giving back, because that's what it means. My mother finally just told me, the only child in the community to go to college. We weren't poor, we were poor because we could only afford 1-0. Mother told me at 17, getting ready to go to college, she said, baby, I'm gonna give you, Mama don't have no money. My mother was a domestic worker. She worked, she gave me everything she had. I had $40 to go across the bridge to San Francisco State. And my mother said, baby, I can't give you any money, but I'm gonna give you this. She said, I was a French major. She said, you're gonna go to places that Mama can't even pronounce. But when you walk in like you have a right to be there. And no one will ever know the difference. So we gotta walk into Congress, walk into the Senate, walk into the voting booth, walk into the White House, walk into the business house, walk into all these top jobs, walk into the corporations like we have a right to be there, because no one, and the Supreme Court, because no one will ever know the difference. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Skinner. The person that I wanted to, okay, we'll just do Julian. Okay, the person I wanted up here with you is gone. Give her her own. Yeah, okay. All right. No, yes. Okay. Wait a minute. Let me say what it says. Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner is receiving the Stone of Hope Award for National Prayer Leadership. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you so much. There she is, Sister Queen. Yeah, she's amazing. But you haven't started. It's fine. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Yeah, just a minute. But just a minute, Roy. We have just a few more people we just want to acknowledge. I want to, he's already gone. But I think I wrote on it. Dwayne Hewitt. Damon. I'm sorry. I'm glad that he's not. Damon. I'm glad he's gone. Mr. Damon Hewitt. He is, I want to say, the new president and executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, who have also been with us for every year, but under different leadership. Kristen Clark was our last one, remember, but now she's in the Attorney General's office, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Dr. Barbara Arnwine, she just had to leave to catch a flight. And now Mr. Damon Hewitt is the new executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, president and executive director. You know, but he came up, you know, when I hear people like Dr. Skinner talking about mentoring, when he came up through the Lawyers Committee, he used to be, wasn't he an intern? Yeah, he was an intern there. So let's give him a hand, even in his absence, because he had to leave as well. These are busy people. I want to acknowledge Mrs. Pilling. Where's Mrs. Pilling? Did she have to go? She's Mama's neighbor. But the reason she's so significant to this presence, for one thing, she's so active in the community, but because I wouldn't know anything about Dr. Turner unless it had been for her. We just had lunch one day, and she was like, you have a women's luncheon, a Stateswomen's luncheon? She said, well, I know you need to invite Dr. Turner, so you never know where the word is going to come from. So let's give her a hand for sharing that information and advice. I can't acknowledge everybody I want to acknowledge, but my sister girl here, Charlene Holloway, she's on my prayer team. She's in my corner. She's the one who keeps me up, her and 6 other people on Thursday nights. And finally, Dr. Audrey, Apostle Audrey Newell with the East Coast Strategic Prayer Infusion, who is, I consider her as one of my coverings, and all of the people from the Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church. I want to acknowledge you too, because you have been alongside me for a long time, so God bless each one of you all. I'm sorry if I missed anybody. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it back over to Julianne. Sorry. Oh, no. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. I was gonna do this last, but let me do it now. Okay. There is a woman of God here with us that rode 2 hours to be here because I needed her to be here with me today on this 10th anniversary. I was gonna save her for last, but I might as well go ahead and do it now before we go back into the question and answer for only a few minutes. We're going to do question and answer. Julianne is going to be in charge. And then we're going to have the book signing, and we're going to have a reception, and more, little hors d'oeuvres will come out, as I said. I don't want to waste that money. And so let us acknowledge my mother. The Bible says that her children will rise up and call her blessed. You better stand on your feet and acknowledge my mama. I think Roy has some flowers for her. She is an incredible gospel singer. She brings down the house. And I'm going to run out there and take a few pictures with her, and Dr. Julianne is going to start. Continue.
Your info. Acknowledgement, and that's for my sister Queen. She is Bishop, I don't know what to say first. She is the Reverend Dr. Bishop Queen Trice
Harris, and a prayer warrior in her own right. You know, Mama gave it to all of us. And so I thank you for also traveling with her. And you heard from Rita earlier. Thank you, Rita, for all of your service to our family.
Well, I want to thank Hazel for the privilege of being asked to moderate today, and I want to thank the musicians here. I did promise, yes, give them a round of applause. I would do two things as a point of privilege. Janice Bathis, I need you to come up here because I need you to help us with this Republican answer. Because NCNW is a nonpartisan 501c3. And as our sister asked a question about how we can come together, I can't think of another better voice to add to this panel but you. You know I always put you on the spot. Sit down, girlie. We are supposed to only go into 2:15 because we don't want Hazel to waste her crab cake money. So we have a reception, we have a book, but I'm going to ask people to respond to our sister who asked, what can we do together from the left to the right? How can we come together as Democrats and Republicans? And Keisha, you already answered part of it about, Campbell, would you say something?
I would echo what she said, but I did see two young girls that had questions. I don't know if we want to go to their questions.
Were there two young people that had questions?
Yes.
We're going to come to you after this. We're going to get to you because our young people must have voices. Janice, would you please address our Republican sister?
Certainly.
And this is my sister, the only reason I could put her on the spot. But as I said, NCNW is I'm a life member, and we are not partisan.
I'm not going to answer it from an NCNW perspective because we are nonpartisan. But I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, home of Lindsey Graham.
Y'all, please give us a respect of just being a little bit quiet. I know if you want your crab cake, go out and get them. They got them out there. Otherwise, give us 5-10 minutes.
I've been to Columbus, Georgia more times than I can count because NCNW has a section there. And I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, which is also the home of Lindsey Graham. And so I know a little something about Republicans. I also know that the only way we got the King holiday authorized as a county holiday in Greenville, South Carolina was that some of us surreptitiously crossed over and voted in the Republican primary because there were some pro-King holiday Republicans running against some anti-King holiday Republicans. And so we infiltrated their primary and got the King holiday, last county in the country to get the King holiday. But what I would say to you, you're certainly free to be whatever party you want to be. It's not about that. But ask them for the rest of us. What do you think about voting rights? What appeals to you about autocracy as opposed to democracy? Ask them those hard questions and get satisfactory answers, and then you will have done all that God requires of you.
Thank you, my sister. I'm going to go to, our League of Women Voters. Help us out.
I would like to say just one thing to our young woman who asked that question. We have to get back to the basics. We have to put country above party. I don't care which party you're in, until we get to the fact that we understand the things that count are our democracy and our country, and we ask the questions about that, we are not going to cross that line. So put your country above your party, and you will be on the way.
We have two young people who want to ask questions. Young ladies, please come up, and then I'll get to you. Okay. Let me get to the young people first. Okay, young ladies.
Okay.
And tell us who you are and where you're from.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ray Tyson. I'm from Richard Wright Schools. And I just had a question. How important is it to have people who've been through, political injustice, stuff like that, to have a seat at the table, to have a voice, stuff like that?
League of Women Voters. Or Campbell. Let's let Campbell start.
Basically, through my personal experience, it's very important because you have people that have actually experienced the injustice, have been inside the system to hear other people's stories, have been engaged with various criminal justice and civic organizations and know the issues. And so I had the opportunity as a person who's impacted to be able to sit at the table and have influence. But, it kind of goes to what you were saying, it wasn't about a political party, it was about serving the people. And so I think just having a focus in that makes a difference as well. But thank you so very much, for your question.
And thank both of you for being here. Young lady, did you have a question as well?
Yes. My name is Perion King, and I attend Richard Wright
Well, both of y'all from Richard Wright. That's a great school.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Ms. Smith. While you had difficulties and challenges, what kept you pushing? What inspired you to keep going?
You know what kept me inspired was reading about some of the women that are even in this room, but reading about our culture and our history and understanding our resilience as a people. I read this book called Black Women in White America, and to hear some of the sacrifices that our sisterhood, our ancestors went through back in the day in order for us to be able to go to school, to be educated, for us to vote. It made me want to question some of the decisions that I made that led me to go down a self-destructive path. And so I think it's really important for our young people to stay engaged and learn our history and culture. So you'll want to continue to carry the torch of us that are trying to move forward and bring change in our communities.
I want to thank both of you young ladies from Richard Wright High School for being here. Give them a round of applause, please.
Okay.
And then this is going to be the last question or comment.
Okay, I'm Sarah Davidson. First, I want to give glory and honor to God, and I want to thank you all for putting my adopted godmother, Daisy Bates and Soror, on the front of your calendar, but you misspelled her name in November. But I am a teenage civil rights leader from North Little Rock, Arkansas, and I came to the march in '63 as a teenager, and I heard the I Have a Dream speech, and I am in the process of interviewing children who came to the march. I've already interviewed 13 people from across America. I was interviewed on ABC Nightline as the face of children who came to the march in 1963. If you'd like to see that, you could just type in Sarah Davidson ABC Nightline video. So if you know people who came to the march in 1963, heard the I Have a Dream speech, and if they were children, and I'm defining children as anyone who was old enough to know that they were at the march, and also under 18. You can get in touch with me. My phone number is 240-515-5739. The children from the '63 march are basically the only ones that are still alive. So we're trying to tell the impact the march had on children who came to the march. Thank you.
Okay, my sisters and my brothers all, in the words of Dr. Janetta Cole, my sisters and my brothers all, this concludes our program. We have had a delightful, insightful, and inciting program, and I am grateful to the panelists who have stayed through the bitter end, as well as to those who were not able to stay. There is a book signing that you must, Barbara Skinner's book has meant the world to me. Please queue up and purchase a copy of her book and get it signed. Please enjoy the reception. Please, before we leave, give Hazel Edney the most rousing round of applause.
Thank you. Enjoy the food, the receptions, connect with each other. This information is no good unless we take it back. And so let's connect with each other, go out, have some food. They're going to serve the food mostly in the area where the book signing is taking place. But some will be in here if you want to come back in here and eat as well.
Okay, had a ball. Thank y'all.
Thank you. You're wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so glad I got to.